What's up, guys? In this lesson we're going to talk about the metronome. How do we use it, why do we use it, and how can it help our playing? Let's go. So first of all, why do we use it? Well, we use a metronome to keep time for us because, let's face it, we're human and we can't keep time as good as a machine can. But if we practice with a metronome enough and we get used to playing with one, we almost become a metronome ourselves because we learn to count so well. So as you can see, today I'm going to be using an iPhone as a metronome because you can download apps on your smartphone to use as a metronome, or you can go to a music store such as Sweetwater or Guitar Center or your local music store, whatever you prefer. They're about $15 to $20 usually. And what it does is it'll keep a consistent sound going for you at any tempo you want to. See, I can change it just by tapping a new tempo. Or we can go the other way. We can slow it down. And another good thing about the metronome is you can play around with alternate time signatures too, like here's 3/4. And here's 6/8. And I wanted to show you guys that for a reason, because that's why I prefer to use metronomes on a phone app, is because it's very highly customizable and easy to use. Whereas if you wanted to buy a metronome from a music store that would do the same thing, it might cost you $50 to $100. So before you go and spend a bunch of money on a metronome, try looking around for phone apps. Some of them work really good, and the majority of them are also completely free to use, which makes it even better. So let's move on to why do we use them and when do we use them, and how can they help our playing? Well, I've already given you one good reason to use a metronome, and that's to improve your internal timing. Another good reason to use a metronome when you're practicing would be to slow something down that you're having trouble playing. So if you're trying to play a piece of music that's 120 beats per minute and you're struggling to play those notes, slow it down to 60 beats per minute and try to play the same notes. For instance, if you were struggling to play this, then you could slow your metronome down to here, and as long as you know the same notes, now, don't you think that would be a lot easier to practice at that speed than at full speed? And then you just gradually speed your metronome back up once you start getting comfortable with it. And before you know it, you will have worked yourself back up to the original tempo. Now, another great time to use a metronome is actually during live performances with your band. But when you do this, you have to either have it tracked out and have it running through your in-ear monitors, or you could have a metronome that just has a light and let your drummer use it. In other words, you can mute the metronome and they'll see a flash instead of hearing a beep. But I also don't recommend that either for live performances because that leaves a lot of room for error. So it's probably a good idea to stick with running your metronome through in-ear monitors if you're a live touring musician. So once you understand the metronome and get comfortable with using the metronome as a steady beat, there are other ways you can use the metronome as well. You can use the metronome as an off beat instead of a down beat. And let me show you what I mean by that. here's another example. So on the first example I gave you guys there, I just used the metronome as the upbeat. And on the second example, I used the metronome as what would be the last 16th note in a measure. And if you guys have never tried using the metronome that way before, I highly recommend that you try it once you get comfortable enough with using it the normal way, because it can really expand your concept of time. And before we finish up today, I want to show you guys how to count in 4/4 time the normal way a metronome would be used. And this is at the tempo of 100 beats per minute. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. See, every group of 4 is one measure or one bar of music. What you're counting there is the downbeat, so if you're tapping your foot, it'll look like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you want to count the 8th notes, which means you're going to be counting the upbeats too, you'll count it this way. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 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 1. Now every time I said "and," that was an upbeat, so your foot should have been moving up if you were tapping your foot along with it. And if you want to count the 16th notes, which there are 4 of during every beat, you have to use 1 E and a, so it would sound like this. 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a, 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a, 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a, 1. And we're going to cover the counting system much more extensively in another lesson, but this should give you a general grasp on how it's subdivided and counted. Alright, that's it for today, guys. If you found this video useful, make sure to click subscribe down below the video and check out the link in the description. That's my website. Alright, this is Jeff Nelson from slapitabass.com signing off. Remember to slap it a bass.